How does it change treatment when working with a client who has anxious-avoidant attachment? How do you discuss the cycle when there is one partner in which this push-pull comes alive when the cycle is present? To clarify, I am asking how you discuss aspects of the cycle and understanding the pattern with this attachment style, stage 1.
Yeah. So stage 1, push-pull, the attachment style most closely associated with trauma or having a lack of safety growing up. As a nervous system, I had to develop a multimodal way of coping. In some moments, I can turn up the emotional heat when that helps me cope better. And in other moments, I have to be able to turn down or turn off the emotional heat if that will help ensure my survival. And so stage 1 with a couple where one or both partners have this, what's called chaotic attachment style, or what I've referenced as fearful avoidance, this push-pull, this hybrid attachment style, expect stage 1 to take longer. When you have trouble articulating the couple's negative pattern of interaction, it can be, it's not always for sure, but it can be because one or both partners have this hybrid push-pull coping strategy, which makes it harder for an outsider like us to sort it and to get it clear. Because just when we think getting it clear, it can shift.
Right.
So stage 1 takes longer. Expect more emotional storms and crises and escalations. What we're doing in stage 1 is trying to make this push-pull process, this multimodal way of coping, predictable to the person who has this attachment strategy, as well as predictable to the partner. Making it predictable is often a first step towards de-escalation. This person is not crazy for having it. It's very adaptive. It makes perfect sense. It does tell me that they endured maybe more than most, maybe a lot, they endured, because having to develop that multimodal way of coping tells me they had to be more creative and more adaptive in their worst moments.
Yeah. So 1, know it takes longer. 2, make it predictable. They are not crazy.
Right.
They endured. They're adaptive. Number 3, expect storms, expect crises. That's part of the process. Yeah.
And for the clinician, it will feel probably a little bit more chaotic. It will feel messier. That's not a negative. It's just like, oh, I'm having a hard time getting their negative pattern of interaction. Having a hard time getting it clear enough to distill, to reflect. But that's when we would encourage the EFT clinician in stage 1 to reflect whatever clarity we think we have, but then be curious about the places where there isn't clarity. Like, this is where I'm not quite sure. Could you help me? What do you know about your way of coping in these particular moments? Some of us try to connect for a client who has this hybrid way of coping. Some of us will try to connect based on the themes of their emotionality. When I feel anger, I do one, but when I feel the softer feelings like sadness and discouragement, I tend to cope another way. So sometimes we can help get more predictability or insight, awareness about this hybrid coping based on what emotions the client remembers and has associated with which part of the attachment strategy. You take your time. It takes an unhurried approach. You want to be normalizing the entire time, validating. This makes sense. Turns out I can cope by turning up the heat, and at other moments I can cope by turning it down or trying to turn it off. And how do I feel about that? And how is it to hear me say that? How is it to share with your partner, even in a stage 1 more cognitive enacting? Naming this new clarity.
Yeah. And I think too, reflecting the cycle requires not being in a trauma tunnel vision place. It requires almost this like zoomed out perspective where you're gathering the context. And so when you're working with trauma and someone is in tunnel vision, they are in fight or flight, they are rigid. It takes a minute to help them to see the context.
Yes. Yeah. The addition of this third insecure form of adult attachment, I think, was Bartholomew and Horowitz. And I think one of the studies were children of caregivers who were borderline, hugged or slugged. And so just that unpredictability and having to brace for either, am I going to get hugged or slugged with a borderline caregiver?
Oh, hugged or slugged. I've never.
And then it puts my nervous system in this hybrid, like, which way am I going to go? What am I going to get? How am I going to have to react in a moment?
Yeah.
And that's some of the research that went into this third insecure form of adult attachment.
For more hot tips on emotionally focused therapy, go to theeftcafe.com and sign up for our newsletter where you will receive short little clips like the one you just watched.